morning Facebook group. So I'm sorry I got a late start this morning. I had to take my brand new puppy to the vet. Woo! She was so cute. She did so good. And so now I've officially become a dog person. I didn't even know how that was ever gonna happen, because for the last 34 years I was a cat person. So she's a little heart thief, and she stole my heart, and she made me a dog person. So I'm probably going to talk about her a lot over these next few weeks. But anywho, so that's why I had a late start this morning. I apologize, all right? Good morning, Jenny. Good morning, Fred. So today's topic is on ghosts and spirits. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this topic was I saw a few YouTube videos, and I was in a discussion with a few people regarding ghosts and spirits, because people tend to use these two words interchangeably as if they're the same thing, and they're not. And I kind of wanted to help make that distinction. Now, I know a lot of people in the group already know about this. Bitch, are you gonna let me go? Like, what are you gonna do? Are you just like, thank you? I know a lot of people in the group already know a lot of this information, but some people may not. And it's also just helpful information, because a lot of us, work with spirits, and sometimes we think we're working with a certain type of spirit when we're really not, and it's something else entirely. So a good perspective to put that in is, ghost hunting, right? So a lot of people who go ghost hunting, more often than not, think that they're talking to, hey, or communicating with or working with ghosts when they go ghost hunting. But the reality is that that's not always the case. So let me explain why. So all ghosts are some kind of spirit or spirit imprint, but not all spirits are ghosts. Okay, so let me say that again. All ghosts are spirits and some kind of spiritual imprint, but not all spirits are ghosts. Okay? So what is the difference? How is that even a thing? Okay. So a ghost, okay, is an energy or something that is left behind of the spirit, that is left behind for a reason. It's usually left behind because of a traumatic event, right? So the person who passed away traumatically. They may have been left behind due to, it's a choice that they get left behind because they're either attached to a home, a location, a person, an item, right? So they want to stay with that item. Another reason why they might have gotten left behind, or what would be considered unfinished business, is that they don't know that they are dead. So this is, a lot of it is ignorance. It's this idea of having trauma to the point where they don't even realize that their body is no longer there. Among other reasons, right? But the point is that a ghost was once a human or a living thing, versus a spirit who may not have ever had a human or a living body. Some spirits fall into different categories. You have elementals, you have ascended masters, you have angelic spirits, you have deities of different pantheons, you have thought form spirits, the list is freaking endless, because the spirit is kind of like the umbrella term for all these other energies, but a ghost is like a subcategory. And so a lot of times people use this word interchangeably, but it's not the same thing. Another thing that I hear a lot about is that spirits have free will. And that's a yes or no situation, because remember, some ghosts are not conscious. They're not aware that they are dead. And some ghosts aren't conscious because they are spiritual imprints. They're literally a memory of a particular location or a memory of a particular event that had happened to that particular spirit, and it's just replaying over and over and over again. So, to say that they have free will kind of is not true. And if you're on a ghost hunt, or if you're communicating with ghosts, or so you think you are, with like ghost boxes and like spirit boxes and like, you know, whatever, and they're communicating with you and they're having like conversation or they're answering questions, you're most likely not talking to a ghost. You're talking to a spirit of some kind. And that is a spirit that has the freedom to go back and forth between worlds, that has the freedom to be able to communicate with you. Ghosts don't have that kind of freedom. They don't have that kind of free will. They are trapped here for whatever said reasons. It could be an unlimited amount of reasons, but they're not supposed to be here. And so for me, and this is why I have such a strong opinion about ghost hunting, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, Leilani, you know, you're too uptight about ghost hunting. It's, you know, it's all fun, you know, and the ghosts have to want to cross over in order for you to cross them over. Like, you can't just be so judgmental. No. The ghosts don't realize what's happening. The ghosts are trapped here. They're not supposed to be here. We are supposed to be here. The energies of this earth are supposed to be here. But things that are supposed to have been crossed over should be crossed over and sent to where they need to go. Just because they're attached to a house, just because they're being a caretaker of a location or a person or a thing, doesn't mean that it's the right thing for that situation and for that energy. Because after all, these spirits, the whole point is that these spirits need to evolve, these spirits need to grow, these spirits need to ascend and elevate past their current state and go through a learning process to either be reborn, to do other things. I mean, depending on what your belief system is, you know. So I can't really speak for everyone on every subject regarding that, but what I can say is that their place, once they've passed away, their status here on earth is no longer valid. It's like, boom, you know, your visa is expired, okay? And so there is no freedom of choice with that, you know. So if you're interacting with spirits or ghosts and they're interacting with you, that's a different energy. You're not dealing with ghosts. If you're dealing with ghosts, a lot of times it's going to be an imprint. It's going to be something that's not conscious. It's going to be something that won't interact, and if it does, it's a very aggressive interaction because of their state. And their state is usually that of attachments, desires, anger, anguish, pain, suffering. You know, there's no such thing as a happy ghost. If you're dealing with a happy ghost that's communicating with you and having dialogue with you and interacting with questions, you're dealing with a spirit of some kind that is posing or pretending to be a ghost for you so that you can interact with it. And the whole reasons behind that could be a whole nother set of issues that we can't even get into today. So it's really important to know these distinctions, because people who go out here and play in cemeteries or haunted houses and things like that, thinking that they're playing with ghosts, aren't always doing that, and can end up taking something home, could end up hurting themselves, etc., etc. So if you are someone who, you know, wants to get into the profession of ghost hunting and the profession of working with ghosts and helping them to cross over, then one of the things you need to first accept right off the bat is that these ghosts are not supposed to be here. It's not a choice for them to be here. They're trapped. They're stuck for whatever the reason. So your profession as a ghost hunter, your job to cross them over, is to do that whether they want that or not, because it's not up to them and they need to cross. So that's the whole point. And not only that, a lot of people forget this other piece of the puzzle. And the other piece of the puzzle is these are energies that require energies to stay present. So they're like parasites, you know, where in order to stay in a location, they must feed off of things in order to stay not present, but because they'll be there, but to stay active, if you will, to be able to move things, to be able to make sounds, to be able to cause changes and cause environmental disruptions. In order for them to do that, they need a lot of energy for that. And if a spirit is trapped here, or if they, you know, chose to be here because of trauma or whatever the case may be, whatever the reason, they need to get energy in order to stay moving and stay active. So where are they going to get that energy from? Most likely whoever's living in the house. The animals, the plants, the people, Okay, the emotional imprints that are in the walls that have been left behind by the people get sucked up. So all that stuff is feeding them. Again, because they're not supposed to be here, because that's not a good source of food. You know what I mean? Because after a while, you're going to start feeling that. If you have ghosts in your house, after a while, you're going to start feeling tired. You're going to start feeling drained. You're going to start feeling some type of way. Because in order for them to keep interacting with you, in order for them to keep doing what they're doing, they have to feed off of you to stay relevant. So that's another thing that a lot of people don't consider. Same thing with people who do ghost hunting. If you notice, people who do ghost hunting, their equipment oftentimes goes dead. Their batteries get drained immediately. The lights go out quickly. Sometimes if you have a very sensitive person who's in that group doing the ghost hunting, will oftentimes get very ill and sick, may want to vomit, may pass out. If you have a diabetic in the group, all of a sudden their sugar level will drop. You know, things like that happen because these energies need that in order to interact, and they're doing that because you're literally egging them on. You're saying, hey, say this, or hey, move this, or hey, I heard that you got killed and so, or they'll say the name of the killer or something just to egg them on. And these energies want to interact. I mean, think about it. Someone comes into your house and starts fucking with you, you know, you're gonna want to retaliate. You're gonna want to do something to defend yourself. And if you're, you know, if you don't have a corporal body to do that, you're going to have to get energy from somewhere to make some kind of effect. And so things like that happen, you know what I'm saying? So that's another piece of the puzzle that a lot of people don't consider when working with ghosts. So the point of this video was to quickly make a distinction between ghosts and spirits. You know, spirits are that big, huge category that can range from anywhere from once living beings all the way up to non-living beings, to things that are not even of this dimension and of this planet, and everything in between. Whereas ghosts is like a subcategory that should have been living at some point, whether it's an animal or a person. They were once alive and now they are trapped here. Spirits have free will. Spirits can go from their world to our world, back and forth at will when they want to, if they are called to do so. They can interact with humans and with other entities to make allies, to be protectors, things like that. Ghosts cannot. Ghosts are trapped. That's why they are ghosts. That's why they're here, and they shouldn't be. And so this is why the job of crossing them over is not a game. This is why the job of working with ghosts, because remember, another thing too, another distinction that needs to be made between spirits and ghosts is that spirits are going through training. They are going through an evolutionary process in the spirit world to help elevate their mental, emotional, spiritual self, so that then when they're either reborn or when they're either whatever their assignment is, whatever they got to do, they're doing it from a perspective of being trained to do so. Ghosts don't have that opportunity to get trained because they're trapped here. And so when you're working with ghosts who are trapped here, you're working with a very low-level basic entity. So if a person, for example, I'll give you a very good example. When you do ghost hunting, or when you work with ghosts that are in psychiatric wards, right, who have died in psychiatric wards, they're stuck there, number one, because of trauma, right? A lot of times they died very, very vicious deaths. But number two, they're also stuck there because of their mental capacity. They don't understand this process of crossing over. It was a traumatic process. And so when you deal with those ghosts, you are still dealing with those disabilities. If they had schizophrenia in life, you're dealing with a ghost with schizophrenia now. If they had bipolar disorder, if they had whatever in life, you're dealing with a ghost that has bipolar disorder. And so you're not dealing with an elevated spirit no more. You're not dealing with someone who's in training and who's working to elevate themselves. You're dealing with basically it's as if someone plucked your spirit right out of your body as you were at that moment in time, and you will forever be that way if they stay here. However, if you've taken on the job as a ghost hunter and taken on as the job as someone who helps them cross over, you are doing them the service that you signed up for, which is to cross them over so that they can then work on their elevation. All right? By going to these haunted houses and fucking with them and then walking away and doing nothing because they claim, I don't want to get crossed over. Of course they're going to claim they don't want to get crossed over. They're attached. There's stuff that they're attached to here. So yes, if you're dealing with a conscious ghost, which is very unlikely, but if you are, and they're conscious and they're choosing to be here for whatever reason, they're choosing to be here because they're attached to something, which is still not a healthy thing. And so your job is not only to be a therapist to them, to convince them to cross them over. Your job is also to be a very good medium to get other spirits to come down to be able to help assist them to cross them over. I mean, it's a lot of freaking work. It's a lot of work working with spirits, especially spirits who already have trauma and mental disorders. It's very, very difficult. And not only that, but when they've crossed over or when they're dead, those energies that they have within them intensifies even more. So someone who, for example, is a very violent person and then died and is stuck here for whatever the reason, that violence within them doesn't go away. It intensifies. They get even more violent as a spirit. Now imagine that, and then you times that by, okay, I can't touch nothing, people can't see me, no one can hear me, no one knows I'm here, fuck. And then it's even more angering and causing a lot more distress. So you have to look at it from that perspective. You know, you're looking at energies who are very traumatized, very distressed, very uncomfortable, and the few times that you bump into a ghost that have been there since the 1800s, 1700s, that just walk around and don't do shit and maybe knock over a glass every once in a while, highly unlikely, but the few times that you do, it's still unhealthy. It's still unhealthy that they're there, because they're not supposed to be there. They're not being given the opportunity to elevate. And that's not fair for their spirit. That's not fair for their soul. That's not what they're here to do. Okay? So, and this whole video was a rant and an education, but it's also an opinion of mine. It's an opinion of mine, having worked with spirits, having gone to haunted houses, having, especially psychiatric places. I've gone to so many psychiatric places with hauntings in it, and it is so sad and it's so disturbing, and your heart just breaks in a million pieces, because you're not dealing, it's just such a deep topic. So I don't know, maybe someday I'll get into some like personal stories that I've been through, but this is just a personal opinion. Now, those of you who also work with spirits or who do ghost hunting as a profession, by all means chime in. I want to know what your experiences is. I want to know how you feel about certain things, because you know, it is a hot button topic, and it is a popular thing that's happening now, especially among younger people, which is getting me a little bit concerned, you know, because you're dealing with like 16, 17-year-old kids that are running around in cemeteries and, you know, trying to record them, and it could be very, very dangerous. So, you know, if you have young people in your life who are experimenting with this world and want to do things like that, show them this video. Plus, I think I have a ghost hunting video on my YouTube that talks about different topics. And really do the research, because a lot of times when you're recording something and it's communicating with you very consciously and it's answering questions, you're not dealing with a ghost. And you need to be able to know the difference. Okay? I love you guys. Have a wonderful Tuesday. I'm psyched because I was playing with my puppy all morning, so I'm just like, I love you guys so much. Have a beautiful Tuesday. And yeah, so bye.